So, hello again, everyone. I hope this session is as exciting for all of you as it is for me. I'm very happy to be here with you. And I would like to officially welcome you to this new episode of the AfriTech Connect, but also the closing episode of this Women History Month. And I would like to remind you that the AfriTech Connect space is a space where discussion unfold on our four core themes, which are spatial technology, inclusive leadership, wellness, and project management within the vibrant AfriTech community, but also beyond. And I'm very happy today to have all of you present for this amazing discussion. I would also like you to know that the AfriTech Connect space is a space for all of us. It's a space for all of us to reimagine ourselves, and it's a space for us to take space simply and be okay with that. If there is at any time where you would like to share a comment or share a question with anyone who is actually speaking, please feel free to put it in the chat. And I want you to be aware that whatever you have to say, it's never stupid or it's never something that no one wants to hear about. Just voice out what you have to say. Tonight we're diving into a conversation that is big, that's very big on AfriTech history, which is a conversation around spatial technology, and it's deeply rooted in our journey. I'm truly honored to be welcoming three amazing panelists with us today. And I'm very proud to welcome them and also to introduce each one of them. And so without further ado, I'm going to start with Nalumino Mayumbelo. So Nalumino Mayumbelo is a town planner at Ndolo City Council under the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development in Zambia, with 7+ years of experience in urban, regional, and land use planning. She utilizes GIS for data-driven evidence-based decision making. In volunteering work, she is the vice chairperson and co-founder of Local Knowledge Mappers, where she promotes geospatial data through mapping. As a 2024 Mandela Washington Fellow and 2023 Youth Mappers Leadership Fellow, Nalumino holds a BSc in Urban and Regional Planning and recently completed her MSc in Urban and Regional Planning from the Copperbelt University. Thank you so much, Nalmino, for being with us tonight. And I'm very pleased actually that we got to meet as part of the Mandela Washington Fellowship. And I'm very proud to be a fellow next to her. Thank you, Nalmino, for being here with us. Next, we have Aisha Jenkins. So Aisha is the co-founder of North Star, has over 20 years of experience in information technology with a focus on GIS and tech equity. With 15 years as a recognized GIS instructor, she's passionate about using geospatial technology to address social and environmental disparities. Aisha holds a BSc in biology from Penn State University and an MSc in information science from the University of Pittsburgh. Her journey with GIS began during the MSIS studies, leading to roles as ESRI certified instructor, team lead, and senior project manager. Aisha also hosts the North Star Gaze podcast, where she shares insights on GIS, tech equity, and community-driven conservation. She is dedicated to empowering underrepresented communities, particularly young people, to use GIS and technology for a more equitable future. Thank you so much, Aisha, for being here. And again, I'm very happy that I got to meet her in person last year when I was in DC. It was very much a pleasure. So thank you for accepting this invitation and being here with us today. And finally, we have Rihanna Kanden. Suddenly, last but certainly not least, Rihanna is part of the AfriTech Fellowship cohort. So Rihanna Kanden has a background in geospatial technology, remote sensing, and agriculture, currently serving as an agricultural support officer at the Ministry of Agro-Industry. Her main responsibilities are to monitor state land, conduct site visits for land conversion, and draft lease agreements. Her expertise extends to the application of drone technology and remote sensing in agriculture, contributing to projects exploring the transformative impact on Mauritius sugarcane industry. Rihanna was selected for the AfriTech Fellowship Program in 2023, where she enhanced her technical and leadership skills through an equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging approach. Passionate about knowledge sharing, she has trained stakeholders on software such as QGIS and continues to advocate for the integration of geospatial technology in agriculture and environmental conservation. Thank you so much, Rihanna. And I'm very happy to have you on the AfriTech um, Connect space because I mean, you're already part of the AfriTech community, just as all of you who are on this call. I'm very happy to have you here. Thank you for accepting this invitation, Rihanna. Wow, I mean, I each time I know each one of you, but each time I look at those bios, I'm impressed, and I'm so proud to say that I have amazing women like you within my community and within my network. So I'm very, very happy to have you with me today. And yes, I'm pleased, and I hope that you will have fun as much as I do today. And I think it's important that we start with this whole title because I think the title was very powerful. I was very excited when I wrote it, and I was thinking, is it too powerful and people are going to be scared of it, or is it okay? So breaking the grid, and I think it's a compelling theme. And to start, I would like to know what each one of you, what does breaking the grid mean to each one of you, and specifically in the GIS context? And what role do you think women can play in reshaping this landscape? I would like to start with you, Aisha.
Okay, so I will admit that when I saw the title, I was taken aback. I'm like, am I worthy? Um, so when I think of breaking the grid, I immediately, what comes to mind is a map. And where I am personally in my life is I'm ready to move beyond the mapped boundaries that we exist within. And so I'm contemplating life outside of the US. And with that comes where do we go? How do we get there? And really pulling in my, I guess, my international knowledge. It's humbling. We're learning a new language, but also knowing that wherever I go comes with me, understanding of GIS, geography, understanding of the world that we live within. And so breaking the grid for me is what impact do I want to have as I traverse these different areas in the upcoming year. So what impact do I want to leave on those spaces? What impact, what can I take with me of North Star? What can I learn from the AfriTech community as well? So I'm thinking big thoughts. So when I think of breaking the grid, I think of breaking outside of what we're comfortable in and breaking outside of boundaries, because now we're in a space of Aisha untethered and what that means. And so I'm in a really reflective and humbling position in my life right now. And I'm thinking of what comes next and just applying all the technology skills and all of the project management skills. And so thank you for having me here and answering this question.
Thank you so much, Aisha. And I think it's very humbling, as you say, but it can be very scary. I was talking about this last time where sometimes we forget that courage does feel a lot like fear. And we forget about that often and we just think like I'm too scared, I'm just not gonna do it. And I think it's a great space where you think of what's next, but also think of what you can do with what you have and what people around you can bring to you. And I'm very happy because in a way you're talking about how you want to go outside of the US, and it's very interesting that tonight's panel is actually four people that are like from different spaces. And so we have Nalumino from Zambia, you from the US, and me and and Rihanna from Mauritius. And I think it's very beautiful to see that we can come together on this space where we can share about this. So thank you so much, Aisha, for sharing this. And I like the term you used. What was it, Aisha? What was it?
Untethered
Yeah, I like
or
that. Yeah. Thank you so much. Maybe Nalumino, if you want to go next. So we were talking about the title, so breaking the grid. So what does this theme maybe say to you? What does it mean? And what do you think what role do you think women can play in reshaping this landscape? I don't know if you're talking, but you're muted.
Okay, so for me, more from what is considered to be.
Sorry, Nalumino, we didn't hear what you said.
Or you can't hear what.
Okay, now we can hear you.
Are you getting me now?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so
now
I
we
was
can.
saying,
Oops. Okay, Nalmina is having some issues. Rihanna, if you want to go next, maybe what does it mean to you?
Okay, so for me, breaking the grid is mainly about, going above the norms. Do not let the limitations stop us, reimagining what's possible, and mainly, going beyond, traditional ways of doing things, especially in Mauritius. We are very stuck with old ways of doing things that we do not want to change, to evolve. But for me, mainly, it's about women are not only end users of GIS and the tools, but they should also be in the position of leading and in the room where decisions are being made. So for me, breaking the grid, it's about that.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's important that people hear that because it's true. Um, I was saying last time, and I was actually asking Nalimino as well, who actually said that quote, and I still can't find who said that quote. But if you're not on the map, you do not exist. And that's really true. And if we are not part of a decision making, then we do not exist either. And I think it's really important that we are part of a decision making, but also of data analysis, data collection, and all of that is very important for us because concerns us as well. I think it's really true what you said. We definitely need to be at those tables, and hopefully we'll get there. I mean, some of us already are, and we'll get there. Nalumino, do you want to go now? I'm not sure if you're speaking, you're muted again. Maybe if it's easier, you can switch off your camera and then maybe that might help with the bandwidth. No.
sorry, the network is quite a challenge when the electricity is cut.
Yeah,
We have load shedding here. So,
yeah. Thank you so much for still wanting to be part of this conversation with all these issues and challenges. That's showing that you are breaking the grid, like even in those challenges. As I said,
uh,
if you need to switch off your camera so
every
that the
time
bandwidth
when the
is
electricity
easier. Okay, I think.
is gonna, let me try. Are you getting me?
Yes, we can hear you. Okay, now we got.
Are you getting me?
Yeah, we can hear you. It's
Okay, I
just
can go
cutting from
ahead.
time to time. But go ahead. Okay. So unfortunately, Nalimino has some issues. We'll try to go through the questions that we had planned for you guys, and then when Nalimino comes back, then we can come back to her. I think I'm going to go to you next, Aisha. With over 20 years of experience in IT and GIS, you've made significant strides in advocating for tech equity. So maybe how do you see the intersection of GIS and tech equity? And what barriers exist for women, especially those from underrepresented communities, when it comes to accessing GIS education and opportunities?
Oh, when I read that question, I had to take a step back. So when I think about the intersection of GIS and technology, I think that there have been some artificial barriers put in place to make it appear that GIS is a technology for the elite. And when I think about that, and I listen to some of the stories of users across the globe, I'm just like, yes, that is GIS getting done right. When you think about when people encounter GIS first, I encountered GIS as I was getting a master's degree, so post baccalaureates, right? And so why? I asked myself the question, why is it at that point where you have to have all of these years of education and put all of this money into your education to now be paying more money to then get introduced to just basic level GIS? And I think that once you start working with GIS, you realize that it is really basic level GIS. And so that's one question I have. Why is it positioned as a tool of the elite? It is an interdisciplinary tool. It is a tool that is multifaceted. I don't think it's a tool that in and of itself says that you have to have this amount of money in the bank. You have to have this amount of knowledge in order to use me, right? So the technology is agnostic, right? It doesn't put rules in place. We do. And so when I think of that intersection of technology and GIS, if you can give a child a smartphone, if you can give a farmer a smartphone, if you can give anyone in the general public a smartphone and say, take a picture and let me capture your location. Why can't I capture locations of things that are important to me? Right? And so when you think about it, we use GIS every day. It's on our smartphones. If you use Waze and if you are going from place to place, it's at your fingertips. So why not just release the barriers that are artificially put in place that says you need to have this level of education before you can start to use and capture data that's important to you, or even access the data that we collect on you? So I think that these are artificial barriers, and I think that we are at a point where we can dismantle those barriers. And so why can't we introduce GIS at the secondary school level when kids are in middle school? They come to school with tech anyway. A lot of the kids in the US are tech natives. That means that they've been born into a society that has always had technology, that has always had Netflix, right? And so when you think about that, if they can ask for a smartphone, then they can track a location. They can capture locations of things of beauty in their neighborhood and in their communities. Why not start there? And then in terms of women in GIS, I mean, the barriers for women in education, again, these are artificial barriers. And so when I think about how far we've come in terms of a global society and making education and GIS available to women, the amount of resistance that we encounter says something, right? It tries to push us all the way back, but we're in this battle for the long haul, right? And so we're not going back. And so to put up GIS, geography is going to be a dying field if it does not diversify. across gender, across race, across age. And we're going to need all of the minds. So when we talk about diversity, we're entering into a climate crisis. If you look around, there's war like there's never been before, right? Some of us have never grown up in a time of war. I have not seen war on the US soil, right? And so we're looking at all of these things where men have been in control. They are killing our earth and dismantling our systems of peace. And so what happens when you bring the perspective of a woman into the space, you get new ideas. We have been the stewards of life-giving globally to our earth, to our communities. And I think that we're here and change is going to come. Some of us are willing to fight the hard fight for it. And we're going to need to make way for these next generation of innovators. So when I think of innovation, I think of diversity. And when I think of ethics, so innovation and ethics will need to go hand in hand. I think of a woman, right? I think of young people as part of the innovation, young women. And innovation will also bring the ethics, because right now we're existing in a space and time where trust is on the table. Trust for the people who create the maps and say these boundaries exist, where we might know that they don't, right? That says this community has been moved here, but we challenge that. So I think that we're going to need young people. We're going to need old people who have been there and know the history. We're also going to need a lot of women, because we feed communities. We birth nations. And so innovation and ethics will go hand in hand, and they're going to move forward. And so that's what I think of when I think of the barriers that are put in place. They're artificial. We can break the grid. We can break these barriers. We can poke holes in the barriers. And then as long as we keep poking holes, the next generation will come and make that hole bigger, because we have to.
Thank you so much, Aisha. I like this resonates a lot with me when you say we feed communities and we birth nations. That's like when you say that, it like echoed in my head. And I think it's really true what you're saying about. I remember when I think it was last year or maybe the year before that we were talking. I saw kids that were presenting on Esri UC at Esri UC, and I was so amazed because I was like, that's what needs to happen, you know? This is something that is really important because at that age, this is where they are more interested in things. And we saw here in Mauritius how low the GIS or the geospatial literacy was, because even though and the problem was not access, because people had access to it, but unfortunately, just because they didn't know what to use it for or how to use it, they were simply not using the licenses. And I think that's where we need to see what is the solution then. We need more capacity building, but at what level? And I like how you say that it has to be across different type of things, because we are sometimes often thinking just about genders, but it's about age and race and diversity is about all of this. And I think it is important to have all those perspectives to be able to have something that actually makes sense. And I'm very happy that you said that there is this trust that is seen around and that is given to us when we are, because I was saying earlier how we will get to those tables, but some of us are already at those tables. And when we are at this table, we are not just representing us, we are representing the whole community, and we are giving the voice to this whole community. So what we need to do then is make sure that we are being accurate. I mean, if we do mess up, I would say obviously it's not something that we are doing on purpose, because we are humans and mistakes do arise, but we are in that space and we are representing this whole community behind us, and we need to be able to make that impact, and we need to have those spaces where we can make those decisions. So thank you so much for sharing this and for telling us how maybe bringing your perspective from the US, but also I would say as a mother, because you know how you have your kids, so you see those as examples, you know, as women growing in this society where society is telling them they can't do this or they can't do that, but no, they can. and they will, So thank you so much,
Absolutely.
Aisha. I will now turn to you, Rihanna, about your expertise in remote sensing and GIS applications in agriculture. I think it's very intriguing because I grew up in Mauritius and I've obviously seen sugarcane all the time, but I didn't think of this space as a space where GIS could be huge. So how do you see the role of women in agriculture evolving, especially in places like Mauritius, where there is a significant potential for innovation in the sugarcane industry? And how can GIS play a key role in this transformation?
So first of all, agriculture is like among the first pillar in the Mauritian economy. So culturally, historically, it is always has been a very male-dominated sector. And changes like it did not happen and it did not happen tomorrow. We'll wake up and you'll find women across all the companies at the like as head of departments, CEOs. But the changes is coming, slowly. Because let's say, for example, at my level, when I was at the university, my batch, we were much more girls than boys. This is where you start to see the subtle, wave of change. And even now, if you look across the company, like company in agricultural sector in Mauritius, you will find women, at the starting position. So I guess in the future they will eventually reach at those leadership position, which will be very good for us. And even during my career, I did met a few women agronomists doing an amazing job in the sector. However, when you reach the work market, you can feel like, for example, my own experience when you go for interview, especially when it's field intensive, you can feel that the interviewer is thinking twice before giving you the answer because when they see women, field intensive, they think twice, even 3 times more, which is where GIS come in because GIS, is a very important component of precision agriculture. So for me, I think it is very important for women to be aware of this science, even if they are not end users, they are not analysts or anything, but they should be aware of this science and what are the possibilities of GIS and remote sensing. Even just knowing the science of what is does really, because in Mauritius there is, I get the impression that there is a huge confusion between GIS, remote sensing, and land surveying. People interchange really GIS and land surveying. They think GIS is land surveying. So there's that issue. So for me, GIS is very important so that if women are empowered, we empower women in GIS and remote sensing, it does not help only in gender gaps, but it can improve our agricultural innovation and sustainability in general in Mauritius.
Sorry, I was speaking, but I wasn't mute. But yeah, thank you so much, Kiana. And I think it's true because I mean, I'm gonna say when I saw land surveyors when I was younger, I didn't even understand what they were doing. And as I grew up, I think like as I started to learn more about GIS and what it meant, and like those different categories, remote sensing, drones, satellites, like when I learned about all the aspects of it. I realized that it was everywhere and that it has been everywhere around me since I was a child, but I just didn't know about it. I did not know that it was a force in itself, and that we need to be using that force to push ourselves forward because it does empower a lot of our conversation and it does empower a lot of our decisions, but we just don't see how it can improve our future just yet, I think I would say in Mauritius, because there are aspects of Mauritian society, I would say. I'm talking on the Mauritian society because that's the perspective I know best. But there's aspect of the Mauritian society where I'm thinking, why are they not thinking about this? They are supposed to be expert in their fields. So why are they not thinking about those spaces? Because I think you will agree with me, Rihanna, when we think about the whole Metro Express thing, how it was done, and how come it has reached this point where obviously it does help people to get around the island, but it also created so many other problems that could have literally been seen if they just mapped it out. you know? And I'm starting to think, I'm like, am I just being arrogant because I know what map mean, or is it just that they should have known, you know? I don't know what's your point of view on that, Liana, but yeah, I just feel like that's why we should be leveraging those data. That's why we should be creating those data to begin with to be able to make better decisions. And I think with the sugarcane industry, we're definitely going to have it's going to have a big impact. And drone technology on this is great. I think I've heard something about how they are also watering now with drones and stuff. Is that true?
Yeah. So basically, in Mauritius, it's mainly the big sugar state that already has an advance in GIS and remote sensing. So
Mm.
they are using, drones for fertilizer and herbicides applications. And when I was doing my research, I was doing how to use drone to measure sugarcane height and detecting gaps.
Oh,
So yeah, the sugarcane industry, they are in advance, but it is quite unfortunate that it's only one sector because it should have been across the board, agriculture, of
yeah.
course. So we are crossing fingers, hoping that the ministry also takes some decision to implement GIS.
You're going to make it happen, Rihanna. We trust you. We talked about trust earlier. It's you. You're bringing this change around for us. I have hope. I will turn to you now, Nalumino. We we've been discussing about some of application in our different countries, but also different industries. So, with your background in urban and regional planning and your experience with data-driven decision making using GIS, how do you think GIS can be better utilized to empower communities, especially women and the youth, in Zambia or beyond?
Okay, so in my experience as an urban and regional planner, I've experienced firsthand um, positive effects of using GIS in a way that encompasses women and a way that bases decisions on community ideas and solutions. I'll give an example of using Kobo Collect tool to collect information about an area before we plan. Me, anger.
Yes, we can hear you. It's cutting a bit, but we are hearing the sentence. It's just breaking a little bit.
Okay. Okay, so using Kobo Collect, where we collect the local knowledge, the data from the community, and that includes women and children. And we all know that women and children are among the marginalized group. And so in urban and regional planning, when we have such technologies where even before planning and children are included in decision making, we get the exact information about what are the immediate needs in the community, what do they want us as planners to do for them as the local planning authority. So we get the details of all that information and use it through GIS. So we also use the information that we have in terms of the services that we are already providing. So we run an analysis and we are able to see where exactly we are supposed to place the next school, the next health facility. So the decisions are usually community driven and data driven. I'll also give an example of in Zambia, we have what we call the integrated development plan. So these are plans 10-year plans that are prepared by every local planning authority in their area, in their vicinity. They have to plan, and this is community driven as well. So the community, we sit and discuss with the community. They tell us what are their immediate needs, what do they think they want? And then as technocrats, we come in to also guide them to say, yes, you need this. And looking at where these services are placed and how they are placed, this is the best location. after we have obtained information about how many kilometers they cover to access those facilities. So together in that manner, even the services that we provide through GIS, the community will be able to appreciate. And women being among the marginalized group, we know women are mothers. So all the ideas that are brought together through the women and through the children, they'll include the entire community. So basically, when we use GIS and we involve women, and we know as women, we also have unique ideas, unique technical ability that we bring to the table. Yeah, so much can be done through GIS and by involving women and the children, because then even when we talk about sustainable development, it would make sense because we know that everyone is involved. And even when we plan, we know that the sustainability of whatever we have planned, because the community understands so well why we have done what we have done, and they actually appreciate it because those are their local needs. It's not just the technocrats saying this community needs a school, when in actual sense, what they need is a water pump. So through GIS, we do what is called in the local planning authority, service gap analysis. So we run an analysis, we buffer the existing services, and we see where the gaps are. What population is not serviced by the current existing services. And as we talk to the community, we are able to combine that technical information that we have with what they need, and together we come up with a solution that is sustainable.
Thank you so much, Nanomino. And I think all you said actually resonate with me and is actually echoing what Aisha said earlier. We are feeding communities and we are birthing nations. I mean, it's so true. Often, I remember when I first came across GIS and people were talking about it and how to explain it. Because at first, when I was telling people, so yeah, I work in this field, GIS field, geospatial technology, I was not sure how to explain it to people. And I remember someone said once, if you need to explain GIS to someone, just ask them what they do and try to explain to them based on what they do, how GIS is linked to it. And that's very true. And that's showcasing as well how it's present everywhere. We just need to be able to take the action of actually leveraging it. And I think a big thing that is across every GIS, under the GIS field umbrella, across all part of it, is asking questions. It's knowing that you never know all of it. And there's always a part of it that you don't know, a part of it that only the community, only the people that are actually going to be using those things that you want to put in place, that will have the answers to what you don't even know. And I think it's constantly asking questions. And I'm very happy that community voices are being heard in Zambia by creating those spaces where they get to be part of a decision making, but before even the decision making, they're being part of the data collection, because they are the one who will have to live with it at the end of the day. And it's true that we often come up with problems and we think, yeah, the community need that solution. I will bring this solution to my community, but sometimes it's not what they need. And it's important to give them that voice. And that's exactly what like from all you said, how much we can have this impact if we are accepting to give again these diverse voices, each of those perspective a space, so that we can look at the problem that is in place across across all phases that it is, and not just in one simple perspective of I need to bring a solution to the community, but mostly we need to create a solution as a community together and build up on it. I don't know if I don't know if the way you're looking at me, Aisha, I don't know if there is something that you would like to add, or even you, Rihanna, if there's anything you want to add on what she said.
So I do have a question for Nalumino.
Yeah.
So it sounds like an equity application, and I'm curious because in the US we have such a distinct racial relationship, racial disparities, and it sounds like your description of going into the communities and talking to the women and children and finding what resources they need, where it needs to be located, that is an equitable application of resources. So I wonder the extent to which Zambia gets pushback, or the extent to which you get pushback for putting facilities and resources in places that need them. Because we're getting a lot of pushback here in the US with our new administration about equity and, in particular, racial equity.
Okay, so so we have the Urban and Regional Planning Act that guides planning. So from 2015, though from 2015, we've been coming up with guidelines on how to come up with the integrated development plans. So these are plans that are not necessarily prepared by only planners. So they are intended to encompass even the other ministries, not only the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. So the whole idea was to ensure that planning is not done in isolation. And the other thing was to ensure that planning, or rather service provision, does not trickle down from the top going down. Rather, it should be bottom up, so that the community themselves, who know what challenges they are facing, suggest that this is what we are lacking in our community. So a document is prepared, what is called the Integrated Development Plan. It's a 10-year plan, though at the moment, not all the 116 local planning authorities in Zambia have, but some have already prepared. And where at my place of work, we have already prepared that. It's running from 2022 to 2032. They are supposed to be reviewed every after 5 years. So one specific condition for these integrated development plans is that they are supposed to have what is called the spatial development framework. So under that framework, obviously it's GIS related. So we collect information from the community, even as we are planning. So we collect information from the community, apart from the technical know-how that we have, the schools that are in the districts. We also want to have an understanding with the community as well as with foreign, not leaving anyone. There will be no blame game at the end of it all. So the community mentioned to say, for instance, there are cases where one community will say they need a school. But because we will be able to see ourselves to say, this community that says they need a school here, they have a school within 5-kilometer radius of their place. But then there's another community that is saying they also need a school, and for them they are not within 5-kilometer radius of a school. So in that case, we'll be able to run an analysis and show them on a map. That's one of the conditions. We have to come up with maps showing the locations of those places, so that there's a reason as to why we are saying, we are proposing that currently this is how the resources will be allocated. These are the services we're going to provide, because we have observed in this area there are these schools, or there are these health facilities, or these water points. But if you look at this ward, let's say a ward which is the smallest administrative boundary that we have in Zambia. So we say, when you look at this area, we can see that there are a few points showing that there are health facilities here. So because of this, we need also to care for our friends here, because we are one community. So throughout the 10 years, there are all those stages, and in each year, there's a progress has to be given on how we've handled it. And every after 5 years, because the elections in Zambia, it's every after 5 years, there's review of the integrated development plan. So ideally, it's to make sure that the needs of the community are in come up with projects that are white elephants.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Very informative and insightful. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
That was really exciting. I mean, like, that's why I love GIS so much because I'm always in awe of how great it can be. And in a way, it's also showcasing that is bringing facts with actual images so that people can't say you are lying, that's not true. And I'm happy because it also, from what you're saying now, it's also making them being accountable to what they're doing and like the decisions that they are taking, but also making sure that communities are aware that as a whole community sometimes not getting this thing is better for this part of the community because they need it more. And I love that. I love that we are not just rising one part of the community and the other one is just staying stagnant. And I love this project. I would love to actually read more on that. So I don't know if it's public, but if it's public, I would love to read more on this.
Okay, so it should be on our website. Each local planning authority has a website. So for those local planning authorities whose integrated development plans have already been approved, they are on the website. So maybe I'll try and check and give you maybe links to say you can check on this website, check on for all those whose IDPs were approved and are currently running.
I would love that. Yes, please share it with me. Maybe not even like if it's not on the chat right now, you can go ahead and share it with us later on. But I would love to read more on that because I think it's great and I think it's something that should be present beyond Zambia, beyond the continent, but like everywhere because it's very needed and even more in those moments that we are living at the moment where it's not giving us a lot of hope in the future. So thank you for sharing this, and thank you for again giving us hope in the future and what the space and the places that we get to take and be part of. I actually the next question is going to be to you, Aisha, which is still connected to equity and community driven. So, through your podcast, North Star Gaze, you've highlighted the need for community driven conversation and conservation. Can you maybe share a story where GIS has directly empowered a community to tackle social or environmental issues? And what role maybe women have played in these efforts?
Oh, good question. And so I will go back just a little bit to the start of the North Star Gaze. And so when we put together the podcast, it was meant to be a platform to tell stories of the entire global diaspora. And with the first inaugural year of anything, you're kind of just scrambling, trying to get it set up so that you've carved out a space. And so this is our second season, and we started to implement the global aspect. So we have a co-host who is from Kenya, and she has a podcast of her own, Gio Habari, Yariwu. And so through the podcast, we've been able to reach out to just different countries, representatives on the African continent and bring those stories in. And so I'll come back to those stories, but the women aspect is we have at any given time 5 to 7 North Star board members and volunteers working in part with the podcast, but working with the entire organization, and probably majority are women. So when we talk about innovation and we talk about driving a vision and we talk about being that steady beat that keeps a movement going, when I look at North Star, I see that in place, and I see the team of women being empowered to do the things that need to be done. And through that, we've been able to realize part of the vision. Of course, we intend to grow with the North Star audience, but bringing in those different voices. And so as we came to a close with the season, there are two voices that really stood out to me. One is Karen Bett, and then the other is Stella Mutai. So both Kenyan women. And I will focus specifically on Stella's story because I followed it longer. And so Stella in particular worked with agricultural regions in Kenya. And there are a lot of women and children farmers. And so, but the man was seen as the one who was the business end of the farm, but women were the one who had more intimate knowledge of the yields, more intimate knowledge of where their farms existed. And so one of Stella's projects was to go in and show the women how to use GIS on their smartphones. Right. And so going back to something that was said earlier in the conversation, I think Raina said this and you guys were exchanging, but what came to mind is putting into context the degree that we use GIS every day, right? So we have GIS, we have GPS units in our phone. We just call it a telephone, but it is capturing information. It is a tool to capture XY coordinates. And why are we not helping people make these connections? And I think that it's a community lift, right? It's taking us to go into communities to say, you have this technology at your fingertips. Here's how we can use this technology for agriculture. Here's how we can use this technology to make our communities better and to empower our communities. And so that story just blew me away. I wondered what I was doing with my entire life as she went through all of the things that she's been doing. And I'm just like, you're amazing. So between Stella Mutai and then Karen Bett's conversation about data and about capturing data and about data ethics, I'm blown away. And so this is the community I want to be a part of. I want to be a part of those who know that there are boundaries and impediments put into place, but we do the work anyway because it matters. And if we have to start from stage 0, then we find a way to start at stage 0 because we know that we're making that investment, right? They say, when's the best time to plant a tree? Yesterday, right? So today is somebody's yesterday. And so when I think about what little I can do with the North Star Gaze, I just create the platform and I'm genuinely curious about people's stories and people's experience with GIS. And I was sweating that first season because I'm like, I want somebody else to take over these hosting duties because I want to be there and I want to listen to the stories and I want to take notes. And I just get to like have my coffee and I'm just like, wow, you're awesome. You're amazing. So I get to eat the fruit from that tree I planted last year. And it feels good. And it feels like I'm doing something that I'm part of the solution and not part of the problem.
Thank you, Aisha. And I agree with you. I think it's something that I think I didn't live it yet. The part where you say where you planted the tree and you're now eating from a fruit from that tree that you planted. I love the analogy of it, and I think it's really true. And I think that's what we should all be aiming for. And I love when you said our today is somebody's yesterday. And I think it's very impactful. It's just like a few words, but it's so impactful because it's saying and it's telling us how every action that we have today will impact what is happening tomorrow with other people. And every action we take is bigger than what it is at the moment, but bigger than us and bigger than everything that can happen. And I think one way that I saw it was with when I created the AfriTech Connect space, and I think that's what Vero kind of felt, I would say, because I remember she said to me that when I created the calendar for the Women History Month, she said, "I'm looking at this at the AfriTech Connect calendar, and there's people that I don't know in this list, and this is so good because I know that you're taking more space and you're bringing more people within this community of the AfriTech family in general, and like bringing them back into this space and letting them be in that space." but it was also a space for her to discover new people that maybe she would not have been able to if she hadn't created this space, the AfriTech Fellowship, to begin with. And I think it is very impactful, and it is something that we get to see, but we get to have that first move. I don't know if I'm making sense, but we need to have that first move to initiate all of it. And I think it's very powerful to see it grow, to see it take a form that maybe did not think of at the beginning, because it's very true that and I'm talking from personal perspective when I'm saying that I often have a lot of ideas, but I'm not sure how it will end up being in the end point, I would say. So we get to start something without even knowing how it will grow, but seeing it grow and seeing other people be part of that action and be part of that continuous trend, I would say, is very nice. And to bring it back to GIS, and as we were discussing, as you said earlier, that it has been here, and we are constantly taking the data. We are constantly taking y coordinates, and it's everywhere. And that's again bringing to that point where all we need to do is making people aware of it, because they are doing it, but they are just not aware that they are collecting this data without even knowing it. So just bringing that awareness to them and telling them, well, you are collecting data without even knowing, and maybe we should be doing something about this data, because the data is there. All we need to do is leverage it and to make better decisions for ourselves. So it is very impactful what you said, and I'm very happy that you shared this. And I hope that you get to enjoy more of the fruits from that tree and keep sharing it with others, because I've listened to some of the episodes. I haven't listened to all of them yet. That's true, but I need to. I definitely need to. But this is a space that I really like. I really like the North Star space. And one thing that I would add is I haven't been to an Esri UC yet, but they're always talking about Black at Esri UC space. And last year, even though I was not at the conference, I was on the group chat. And just being on the group chat, even if I was far away, I felt part of a community. So, I mean, I can't even imagine what it feels like when you're actually present in this space, but hopefully this year I will get to experience it. So I'm very excited. But yeah, thank you for creating those spaces, and I hope that we get to create more of those spaces in the future. I will turn to you now, Nalumino, for the next question. So we've seen in the introduction that you co-founded Local Knowledge Mappers, where you promote geospatial data for mapping. So how important do you think community-driven initiatives are in making GIS more accessible? And what are some of the challenges you face in those efforts, particularly in rural areas? Because you shared with us through this project and through this amazing community-driven opportunities that is happening in Zambia, but maybe there is some challenges that are still present that you face in these spaces, and particularly in rural areas, that you would like to share with us. Oh, I think there's a question for you, Aisha, on the chat. But yeah.
Okay, yeah, I've dropped a question for Aisha before I even contribute. Okay, so for um for local knowledge mappers, I actually got motivated to be a co-founder of this after I attended the Youth Mappers Leadership Fellowship in Jamaica. So what our objective is for these local knowledge mappers, we've observed that there are so many people adding data to OpenStreetMap across the globe. People are adding data. Then we thought of how about we actually engage the local community themselves as we are adding data. Because the local communities, for instance, would know that even if there is this looks like a bush, there's probably an old cemetery, there's someone who might have been buried here. So they have the local knowledge of specific areas. And even as we are adding data to OpenStreetMap, we are instead of just saying building, the local people will actually be able to guide to say, this is exactly what is here. This building has no facilities for the differently abled or the disabled. This facility, the accessibility is ABC. So we thought our interest is the community, and we believe that to plan sustainably for the community themselves have to be in the forefront, or else we will plan to fail. So local knowledge mappers basically is about training university students, the community on adding data to OpenStreetMap. For instance, last year we come up with challenges as well, and we give gifts to the winners in terms of mapping, those who map more places. Maybe say, let's map the trees, because we want to have data. We know that a community that is not mapped, it's as good as not planned, because then how can we plan for it if we do not even know what exists there? So now the challenges, I'm sure you've already seen one of the challenges here, the network. Because for you to add data, especially during this time when we have load shedding, you find that mostly the internet connection is a little bit unstable. So we find that's also a challenge. And then for the other community members may not have the gadgets as well. That's another challenge. So the internet connectivity and resources sometimes, because to bring the community together, we obviously do not just start from without. We have to collaborate with other NGOs. We've collaborated with other NGOs, even internationally, like from Tanzania, there's TomTom, and also youth mappers. We've also collaborated with youth mappers to make sure that we come up with events. We bring students together at the different universities in Zambia, the Copperbelt University, the University of Zambia, Creso University, just so that we can come up with something. And we've encouraged the students to say, even if you don't have a laptop, fortunately, you can also use your mobile phone. Or just in order to help each member, each community member to be able to communicate or to add data to OpenStreetMap, because we know the community, they are the ones that have the information that is required. Another challenge, though it doesn't really seem to be much of a challenge, but somehow I feel maybe it's where we need to work more or to sensitize people. I have noticed in most universities, in schools, that we tend to associate GIS to only geographers, planners, those in the other fields. But the truth of the matter is that GIS, for me, I say GIS is in every profession. I actually say, if someone tells me that they do not need GIS, I would simply ask them to say, tell me your profession. Then I'll tell them that you can actually use GIS in this way. If someone says, I'm a lawyer, I work at the court, I do not need GIS, I'll tell them, do you know where most of these cases that are rampant in your community, which area exactly they are usually taking place? So you can simply map even those areas. If there are murder cases, you'll be able to see, oh, mostly murder cases are coming from this area, from this location. So what could be the problem, so that you can come up with a solution? So for me, it's something that we need to work on, also to emphasize that GIS is in almost all the professions, if not in all professions, because in all, I don't think there's any development that does not require us to know location data. In as much as we talk about the information that we want to provide for any manner of development, there is need for location data. So for me, GIS is for everyone, and we can all use GIS for sustainable development in our various professions.
I agree. I definitely agree with you. And it did change my life when that person told me that just ask them what they're doing in their life. And like you said, every time there is this aspect of location intelligence that is attached to it, and it's very true. Even if they don't want to attach it to their profession, I mean, they are still human beings that need to move around. And that aspect of their life, like every aspect of their life, even if it's not in the profession, it's attached to location intelligence anyway. And I think it's important, as I said, to make people aware of that so that they are aware of the importance of it, of also the power of it, because it has a lot of power, but it's just here sitting. The data is just here sitting without no one being using it. So I think it's something that we should be leveraging more in the future. And I agree with what you're saying. And I actually want to say thank you with about the challenge you said about the load shedding. I think it's something that is coming more and more prevalent in some areas and less in some others. But even though all of this is happening, you still made it possible to join us tonight. And thank you so much for that, Nalimina. I want to say thank you because you're taking the time and you're taking this opportunity to be here to tell people that we need to do something. And so those problems are present, but there are data that is available for us to know, okay, so in those areas we're having load shedding in this it's paramount in this area, it's less in this area. What is happening? What can we do? What are the things that we should be placing so that this does not happen in the future, so that we can be developing as a community, but as a country, and then as a continent, and overall as a world. And I think it's very impactful and very important. And thank you for sharing this those challenges, but also for sharing with us the drive behind local mappers, because I think it's very genuine, and I think it's something that has a place in the present and in the future of Zambia, but also of everyone else. And it's something that we should take as an example, because we definitely need to be creating those spaces where community are coming together and understanding the power of where, and also understanding how this information can help us. So I will turn to you now, Rihanna. You were part of the AfriTech Fellowship Program, which focuses on EDIB, so equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging principles. How did the fellowship influence your approach to integrating GIS with equity? And how do you think we can encourage more women, particularly from marginalized groups, to pursue careers in geospatial technology?
I'm having also some network issues, so I will just set the camera off.
Yeah, that's fine.
So yes, being part of AfriTech Fellowship definitely was a game changer for me, not only in terms of technical skills, but also in how I view equity, inclusion in technology in general, especially GIS. Because AfriTech focus on EDIB made me realize about accessibility of geospatial data, like who has access, who gets to use it, whose voice are being left out. Because to be honest, on my side, like I come across GIS in my first I came across GIS in a module at university. Then I rediscovered GIS, like the application of GIS really in agriculture during my training years. So for me, it was always very technical, very scientific, and very local here in Mauritius. But in GIS, even when we were doing the 3 days of training GIS, when we highlighted the human aspect of GIS, this really was highlighted in the fellowship. So which was new for me and have that gave me new direction how to look at things in GIS. And in terms of how to encourage women, marginalized groups, and women in general, I think the first thing is, like we said before in this talk, that we should show how GIS is relevant to everyone. Like, for example, an entrepreneur should know that the possibility with GIS that she can get the spatial data to do make efficient decision towards the customer, towards the area, like, and another one for agricultural sector will be more about yield. Each one has another relevancy to GIS. And second thing, I think mentorship is very important to have someone to guide those people. And one thing I think is also very interesting is that open sources are very important for these people to get access to open sources technology, because most of the time open sources are free, so they can at least get a first touch of GIS with these tools. Also, we should have a safe learning space, definitely very important. Then finally, I think for women to be more aware of GIS itself, as we already spoke about this before, that GIS itself is not very clear here, for example, in Mauritius, so that women can have a clear career pathway if they're interested in this sector.
Thank you, Rihanna. I think all those points are very valid. And one thing that, like you said, we should be more aware of the open sources because, as Aisha said before, it should not be a technology for the elites. And not only that, but people should also be aware that some licenses are open, like even the Esri licenses, some of them can be provided to you for free. You just need to think to be aware of what are those options. And be aware because like I said, we did see with the AfriTech Fellowship when we created it that the licenses were there. They were available for university students, but unfortunately, they were not aware that they had access to those licenses. So they are not being used. There are over thousands of them that are allocated to them each year. And as from 3 years ago, only 20 were being used, which is ridiculous. And I think it showcased again that one big problem is the awareness because people are just simply not aware. They are doing it, they are surrounded by it, but they do not know that they can actually leverage it, and they don't know that they have tools at their disposition for them to actually use it. And I think this is definitely something that we need to look into. Thank you so much, Fiona. And I think I will kind of merge the two last questions so that I get an input from each of you around this theme. So we are thinking about the future. We are saying that we want to break the grid. So as we look into the future of GIS, particularly in your respective fields, so what concrete actions do you think need to be taken to address gender disparities in the GIS industry? And also, what would each of you say, what would be an advice that you would give to young women who are interested in pursuing careers in GIS or geospatial technology, and particularly those who might feel intimidated by this male-dominated nature of the field? So quickly, we'll go around each one of you. Maybe Nalimina, if you want to go first. So what do you think in your respective field we can do to concrete action that we can do to address the gender disparities? And what would be your advice to young women?
Okay. What I think especially those that are interested in the GIS field, I would say please go for it. Those that we shouldn't feel, as women, we have so much that we can bring actually to the table. But sometimes it's very much possible to start feeling intimidated. But it's very much possible. We look at GIS just like any other system technology that has tangible technical things that you can solutions that you can visually prove with evidence-based decision making. So maybe what we should always tell ourselves, even as women or girls, is that if I want to make evidence-based decision making, then I have to go for GIS. Nothing should make me feel like this is not a profession for women. No, if it's something that can help me make evidence-based decision, something that I have proof as to why I'm doing a certain thing and other people will be able to appreciate, then why not go for GIS? Because I will not only deal with the information, but I also deal with the actual location attached to it. So where there's evidence, everyone will see as to why I'm doing what I'm doing. And sorry, the other question you said something to do with the future. What was the?
Yeah,
Can just
so
repeat.
basically, what concrete action do you think in your respective field under the GIS umbrella, in your respective field, what do you think could be a concrete action that we need to take to address gender disparities?
Okay, so maybe the other thing also to do with, though it was mentioned by the other panelists, when we talk about GIS, so we have ArcGIS, ArcGIS Desktop, and others will talk about when it comes to the disparities. Maybe someone will say, I do not have the money, as a woman, the marginalized group would say, I don't have the money. But the good news for that is that maybe in future, all of us should also make use of the open source GIS, like QGIS. I do not have to pay anything. I'll simply download and I'm able to use. Mostly I actually use QGIS as well. So we should not have any excuse because we have so many platforms now, open source. Even Kobo Collect, if I'm using just for these other simple, I don't have to pay anything. There's QGI. So there's always a way, and we can always make it for the future. We can do so many things, so much like analysis using QGIS. So we can do more even in future using open source QGIS when we cannot buy the licenses for the ArcGIS Pro. So there's still much that we can still do even as women.
Thank you so much, Nalamino. I agree. I definitely agree. So your advice is be bold, trust yourself, go there and show them that there is evidence. Thank you so much for that. Aisha?
That's
Okay.
okay.
Yeah, I don't know
Okay,
if
so I
you,
wanted
if
to
you want to add something, go ahead, Nalamino.
Yes, and the other thing we deal with the differential GPS, where you move in the field, you pick the coordinates, you want to use them. Sometimes as a woman, you feel like, this must be a man moving around with the GPS and carrying all this stuff in the field, maybe a 30 hectares farm and whatnot. But then in future, I think we should just all embrace that it's a wonderful profession. You move around, pick all those coordinates in the bush, come back, and at the end of it, or you visualize where you have been, what you have been doing, and you're able to make other people who didn't even go there to see that this is where you went and this is exactly what you're doing. So it's actually an interesting field. So we should look at it as something that is interesting for even us as women, not just for men, maybe because of moving around with the GPS and stuff.
I agree, definitely. I've got lost in the forest a couple of times when I was in the conservation field, but it's true that by doing it by myself, that's the only way I learned. So if you want to learn more and get more evidence, you need to do it yourself. So go ahead and do it.
Yes.
Aisha?
No, I love it. And I come from an Esri space, but I am on a mission to learn QGIS because this is what I'm hearing, especially in digital humanities, being able to work with open source and digital humanities in the university environment. Like open source is everything, right? And so I actually feel limited in terms of my skill set by not knowing QGIS. And so that is what is next on the agenda for me. So in terms of gender disparities, I think that we will not get very far if we don't come up with a way to effectively provide community support. Right. So we cannot go into communities and say, oh, just learn GIS. And I've got a baby crying, or, I was out in the field and then I got sick. Right. Because there is very real, visceral human aspects of being able to do two things. Right. So we're talking about a real culture shift. And what does that look like in terms of being able to support the women? That means being able to support them from head to toe in all of their aspects so that we're not forced to make hard decisions about family and, doing GIS work out in the field and out in a particular career. So I think that we really have to consider, how do we support the whole person if we want to diversify? I mean, women are going to do it anyway, but we should not be left to do it all on our own, right? It's a community lift because the entire community, whether it's our local communities or our global communities, will benefit. It's just a given, right? And then in terms of advice for women seeking GIS careers, is that I think for some people, when you go into male-dominated fields, you tend to think that you have to become them. and that your natural skills are less, you know, that your voice, I'm a high soprano at times, right? And that your voice won't always get heard. And part of the challenge that I found toward this point, in I'm mid-career, I'm making a pivot, is that I am trying to own my voice, right? I get giggly when I get nervous, right? But that's just a me thing. But I do podcasts, right? So when I am over that nervousness and I lean in, I take on more bass, right? Because I'm more confident. Of course, you're going to be nervous. So I want people who are thinking about going into these male dominated spaces to understand that what you bring naturally is a gift, and it's an additive to any environment that you go into. And that helps to fuel the innovation. Because if you're busy hiding your gifts under a bushel, or you're busy choking down your natural perspectives, I think then we cheat the entire career field. And so what I'm learning is that Clinton, is also a founder of North Star. I am not Clinton, right? So when people show up to meetings, and men show up to meetings, they are showing up to meet Clinton, not understanding that operations wise, that it's all here. And a big part of the driving force is women. And the person who shows up consistently and will remember certain things, it's me, because that's one part of my profession as a project manager. But also, I like people. I like to talk to people, and I like to understand details about the things that drive and make people smile. Right. So that's a unique gift that I bring. And together as a North Star team, we're able to get the things done, not because I'm Clinton, but because I'm Aisha and I bring my unique skill set. And I think that that's so important.
Thank you so much. That's very, very true. And I love that you're sharing this. A couple of weeks ago, I got to do a keynote speech around community and the power of communities and support system. And that's one big thing, like the one of the final part of a talk that of a speech was a quote actually from Brené Brown that says, "Courage starts with showing up and letting ourselves be seen." And for as long as I can remember, I loved the shadows. I loved being behind the curtains, behind people, not being seen. And I think it takes a lot of healing process. Of course, it takes some time to actually embrace being seen, but I've realized that being seen is what actually help others be seen at their in their own way as well. Because I realize that today the way I accept myself and be accept to be seen is helping others step out of those comfort zone and of those shadows as well. And I love that you're saying that because it also showcases. I'm happy that you're sharing it because it shows your vulnerability of aspect of it as well. And this is something that society is constantly telling us to hide, to showcase to people that we are leaders and we are doing this and we are great and we never doubted ourselves. And but it's showcasing that it's true. There is time where you doubt ourselves. There is time where you don't want to be seen, and there is time where you feel like, okay, no, that's not a space for me. But turns out it's actually those spaces where you just need to shine brighter because those spaces need you. Those spaces need your voice. Those spaces need you to actually show up and show the people that showing up is good and showing that you can do this by still being yourself is also good. And thank you because I think I'm pretty sure even Clinton is proud of having you as well as part of the team because you have been a great part of it. And even Vivo, when she's talking about it, she's always talk whenever she's talking about North Star, Aisha is always mentioned. So you are a big part of that. And if just in case you didn't know, we can see it from the outside as well. We see you, and I'm very happy to
Thank
see
you.
you, and I'm very happy to see you tonight for this session. Um, so thank you for sharing that.
Appreciate it.
Rihanna?
Yes, so one advice for me that I would give to people who are interested is that let your passion guide you. Because for me, it was a very important aspect because when I left my job where I was doing intense research in GIS, I thought I would never see GIS again because one does get included. But then, see, under my way, I found AfriTech Fellowship, and today I'm speaking on GIS with amazing people who have amazing career. So I think passion is very important to keep. So because I didn't want to leave GIS, so always have one foot in that GIS. So I think passion is very important, and also to do not let the imposter syndrome, which is always here, to let this get us. Because last time myself, I got invited to view a project like in an international world, and the first line in the mail was inviting the experts. I was, am I an expert? As if I have not done 3 years intensive research in GIS. But then I'm glad that I joined that meeting. I got to learn also. Then, in terms of how can we help, as I said, in Mauritius, we really do need that awareness itself. What is really GIS? Maybe we can start at school, at girls' schools, to empower more women so that they know what is GIS. And maybe also government, I hope in the future will tend to fund the projects involving GIS, especially concerning capacity building, because we really need this to do our job efficiency these days. And also I hope the private sector also, maybe they are not aware, as I said, of the science itself. Maybe only a part, as I told you, in the sugarcane industry now it's starting to be applied, but maybe more, in terms also in the humanities, like you said, the planning, urban planning. GIS is very important in this sector. So why till now we are not seeing it? So I hope in the future it's coming.
Thank you, Rihanna. And yeah, passion is big. I think that's one of my favorite thing in the world is seeing passion in people. People do look different when they're passionate about something, and I think all of us can feel it when someone is passionate about it. When you were talking right now, we could feel, even if we can't see you, we could feel in your voice that you're very happy to still have GIS as part of your world and be part of that world as well. And yeah, passion is very big, and it's definitely a huge driving force in a lot of the things we do, and even more in GIS because sometimes it can be tricky, but the passion tells you, oh, it's a challenge. What can I do? How can I find the solution to that? And then it brings you to community as well, where you say like, okay, so I can't find this solution, so let's go and ask other people. Or sometimes even online, you would ask on forums and be part of discussions to know how you can better make this story map or even this map. And I think passion is what brings all of this together. So thank you so much, Fiona. I know we are at time, so I don't know if there is anyone who would like to add last words before we close up this call. For me, I would say I'm very happy to have had this conversation. It was very insightful. What I like about those type of conversation is that even though you think you know people, when you're having those conversation, you discover a new side of them. So I'm very happy to have discovered a new side of each one of you today. So thank you for your authenticity and your vulnerability and your presence.
Thank you
Thank
for having us.
you.
Any last words, or can I just close it up with last minute information? Yeah, so thank you again to each one of you for participating in this conversation. And I would like to say that all of the episodes of AfriTech Connect are available on our YouTube channel, so feel free to look at them. Thank you to our audience who has always supported us. For instance, next month we already have 2 new episodes of AfriTech Connect that are planned. So please follow us on our social media to make sure to not miss any of the conversation. And I would like to thank our support system, our communities, and until next time, keep innovating and embracing the spirit of exploration. Thank you so much for everything. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.